Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Annie Novotny, Client Services Coordinator for the Women's Resource Center. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is my pleasure to introduce you to today's presenter and nominated Wonder Woman, Lisa Krouse, who will be speaking to us about career development, breaking down barriers. All lines are muted, but feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box below, and Lisa will try to answer them at the end. Over to you, Lisa.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just want to have a nice warm welcome to everyone who is joining us today and has given up their time to join us in this conversation. So you're right, today we're going to be talking about career development, breaking down some barriers, and I'm going to just share my perspective on the last 30 years of my career and sharing some of those key learnings that I've had, hoping that it might help all of you. Certainly, we've all been subject to the bad breaks and gotten good breaks, but at the end of the day, what I want to talk to everyone about is playing to your strengths in this universal game of golf and life. And I will be talking a little bit about golf and what I learned from that game. But first, I want to tell you what an honor it is to join you today. I am particularly so proud of the work that the Women's Resource Center does. And I want to thank Annie and Ann and all the wonderful folks at the Women's Resource Center for inviting me and for recognizing me as a Wonder Woman. Today, we're going to be talking about golf, a little bit about golf, and about, more importantly, your career goals and bringing out your very best. So today is really going to be all about the power of you. Today is about you. And this conversation should be a moment in time that you've taken for yourself to be thoughtful about where you are, where you want to be, and we're going to talk about the power within yourself to get you there. One, it is, the word you, right? Three letters. That's all it is. Yet it represents the opportunities that you grasp at every day to make a difference in your life, but in the lives of so many others too, who are depending on us in so many ways. This has been such a difficult year for everyone. And as we talk about you, I want you to reflect not necessarily on the trials and tribulations of 2020, but the promise of 2021, where you want to be, and what you want out of the new year. So we're going to be talking a lot about you, your thoughts about yourself, and that's not something that we do very often as women. We don't pause and reflect on our life, what we want out of our life, and how to be the best that we can possibly be. So turning to the game of golf in our next slide, one of the most famous things that have been said about golf, particularly from Bobby Jones, is that golf is the closest game to the game we call life. And I think that's why I have used the game of golf as a metaphor. I'll share a little bit about why I've come to appreciate the game of golf. First of all, you need to know that my entry into the game of golf didn't come until the age of 50. And primarily, I think that's because I grew up in a home where we didn't have very much. I was saying to my husband yesterday, I don't think I can say that we grew up in poverty because I had windows on my home, right? And there were those friends of mine that weren't that lucky and didn't have windows. We grew up in New York. And the thought of golf, it just never entered my world. And so being in Sarasota and hearing a lot about golf, it was all new to me. But to be perfectly honest with everyone, I never really considered it a game of sport. It's not that obvious. Let's face it, folks. You get in a cart, somebody offers you a beverage, and you drive from hole to hole. I'm like, what is this? Is it really a sport? But taking up the game of golf at the age of 50 was a pretty steep learning curve for me. And it was a steep learning curve, not so much in learning a sport, but learning about myself. So, one of the key things about the game of golf is that golf is a common denominator because in the game of golf, everyone has a handicap. And there is no reason when you are talking about golf to wait until you're good enough. You'll never be good enough in the game of golf. So, just those 2 points alone really reflect on how golf is so much like life. We all have handicaps. We all have our strengths, and let's face it, our weaknesses, and we've got to play to our strengths. And that's something that I want everyone who is listening to this recording and listening live to know. Don't get caught up in your handicaps. You need to play to your strengths. And the other thing is, don't ever wait until you're good enough. You're good enough. Now let's go. And golf played a pretty big role in the idea that we could never let up. The reality is, for many women, golf just isn't a part of our life because we just don't have the time. But let me share a little story about how I really first learned the game of golf. I was a student, was wanted to learn the game of golf. And so over the weekend, I had signed up at someone's suggestion for Annika Sorensen's clinic in Orlando. Now, Annika Sorensen is one of the, I would say, most notable, famous, and amazing players who's a woman of our time. So, and what happened was I showed up in Orlando for the weekend to take this clinic, which I thought was pretty pricey for someone just recognizing that I wasn't so sure I wanted to continue with the game. And oddly, Annika was sick, and her sister Charlotta met me, and she said that she was going to be coaching me for the weekend. And I thought, oh my, I thought I was going to get Annika, and I got Charlotta. Well, we did some one-on-one drills the entire weekend. We had some practice sessions, and we played a game of golf out on the course. By the second day, and remember, we had been in Orlando. It was hot, hot, hot during the summer. And Charlotta felt comfortable enough with me that she said something that changed my view of golf and actually life forever. And she knew how I was struggling with the game, and she knew I wanted to be good at it. And she said to me, look, Lisa, I know you want to be good at the game, but sometimes, girlfriend, you just need to accept where you are. She said, I trained my entire life to be number two. I'll never be as good as my sister. When you came here this weekend, I saw the look in your eyes when I wasn't Annika. And the way she said it, I knew that insight would resonate for me for many years to come. So I want to share a couple of points that I learned when I was playing with Charlotta. The first is never let up. And the second is your stance is critical. Your stance is about how you position yourself in whatever situation you're in. And so the key learning is that you always need to have control of your position and where you are if you want to succeed. One of the things about the game of golf, for those of you who have played it, is that you never pay attention to the water or the sand that's in front of you. Why? Because your mind will take you there immediately. To be successful in the game of golf, you've got to have a strategy about where you're going. And so, as you're all thinking about 2021, I want you to be thinking about where you want to go. And I don't want you to place water or the sand in front of you so that you immediately fail before you have even begun to start on your goals. One of the things about the game is that you think about the wind that's blowing and the condition of the course. And one of the things that you need to know is that conditions are rarely perfect. In life, it is never going to be perfect. Just look at 2020 and the year behind us. And if you're going to be waiting until things smooth out, they are never going to smooth out. They're never going to be perfect. Anytime I enter a course, the conditions are rarely perfect. And I have to tell you, if there's mud on the course or if there's a hole, I'm going to find it. So automatically, conditions, you gotta just accept what they are. And your stance makes a difference. Your stance of confidence, your stance of knowing where you're going, the stance of knowing where you want to be makes all the difference in the world. The next thing is you must keep your focus on the ball. Practicing, making corrections along the way, being open to coaching, and being persistent, you're going to be able to tackle your toughest challenges. And be realistic about where you are. You can't compare yourself to anyone else, and so don't do it. That will defeat you to start with. What I want you to think about is those individuals that you surround yourself with and ask for help and ask for coaching. There has never been a time in at least the last 16 years when I've been associated with FCCI that I haven't had a coach. I've had executive coaches. I have had coaches who have helped me with my presentation skills. I have had coaches who have helped me create development plans, and they've all been different. There's never been just one person because you want to be open to the feedback that individuals have that have different strengths than you have. And I would say to be willing to hear some hard messages. For me, the most direct and most impactful messages have been the ones that probably have hurt the most. And I think that recognizing where you are is important if you want to raise the bar. You can be okay at what you're doing. You can be good and you could even be great. That doesn't mean that you can't lift the bar on yourself nonetheless. So the next point is your vision must be broad for yourself. And by that, I mean, you've got to recognize that being agile and being nimble in where you are and being able to adjust to the circumstances really make a difference in moving ahead. I have to tell you, I don't want you to get caught up in what's behind you. I want you to be thinking about the future. And I want you to have a broad view about the possibilities that lie ahead of you. I would say that that you've heard me say this, a few times, which is to be intentional. I want you to verbalize, write down, tell someone who you are comfortable with where you want to go and what your goal is or what your goals are. When you verbalize it and you commit to it, it makes a difference because forever you will be lingering in your mind about, can I do it? Am I good enough? Is it the right goal for me? And when you verbalize it and you begin to take small steps to move forward, I think that creates the confidence in and of itself to achieve a goal. So have a broad vision. And when the journey, the life journey ahead of you takes you to a different place and a different hole, even though you are on that course and you've created the goal and direction for yourself, be okay with that. Embrace where you are and be okay with the fact that life's journey may not be in a direct line. It never is. When you are, playing the game of golf, hitting for that flag is never direct. So I want you to think about that and be okay with life taking you in a place that you didn't expect. So that takes us to the next point, which is you must get tough, be tough, stay tough. One of the most important and valuable lessons in business for me has been that the obstacles can be overcome. If the ball is in the rough or in the mud, you don't have a choice. You've got to play that ball where it lies. And that's the same thing for where you are at this point in your life. You've got to play your position where you are at this moment in time. Don't look back on where you were. Don't think about your failings. You are going to be successful. Believe it, believe in yourself. And when the ball is in the mud, or if it is in the rough, it's okay. That's where resiliency comes in. That's where your strength and courage comes in. And you can't let anything take you down. That's hard. It's especially hard when you're there in the moment. But it's in those moments when you look back on them that have either put you in a different place, have made you a better person and able to deal with circumstances, and have really positioned you to achieve your goals. It's not in the easy times that get you ahead. It's always in finding the strength within yourself and really learning from your circumstances. So I would say get tough because we are sensitive, we hurt, we feel for others. But in business, you've got to just be tough. And, that is where Charlotta's story took on a different meaning for me because it occurred to me that whether you are number 2 or you are number 200, that's not what your focus should be. It should be on playing your personal best. And your personal best can't be compared to anyone else's. So know where you are, be honest with yourself, and embrace those successes and achievements that you find yourself facing. Applaud yourself because you know how hard it was even to make the smallest of change in your life. And don't lose sight of the fact that your personal best is the only thing that matters in your life. You get to decide what your personal best is. You get to decide whether you can push yourself harder, work harder, strive harder, and balance it with where you are. Everyone is at a different point in their life. Some of us have elderly parents that really take our time and effort. Some of us are just facing a newborn baby and have to take care of children. Some of us have children at home where we are trying to balance this new remote learning with our jobs. Don't compare yourself to where someone else is. Be kind to yourself by recognizing where you are. And even though you're facing challenges, set goals for yourself. Don't allow the time to go by without focusing on where you want to be. While you balance, pace yourself, take your time, or speed it up depending on what circumstances you have around you. So that will take us to the next point. And that point is that the most important shot in golf is the next one. I can't tell you how often it has really gotten to me where I just played just so awful. And I'm mumbling and just, complaining to myself as I move on to the next hole. And every time I handle the situation that way, the next hole is just as bad as the previous one. Oh no, that is not what you are going to do. You are going to focus on the future. You are going to recognize that the past is behind you. And it is okay to acknowledge where you have been, but it is not okay to allow your failures and your difficulties to hold you back from success and where you want to be in your future. That is not okay. The most important thing you need to do is focus on where you are going and the next steps you are going to take. When trying to improve yourself in the game of golf, trust me, improvement is seen in the slightest and smallest increments. It's not any major change that happens when you're playing the game of golf. And lasting change comes in very, very small degrees. You never really see change as it's occurring. You know that. It's the smallest, slightest little things that are happening that are beginning to change who you are and change your life. You know, when you are trying to recognize where you are and know those small little efforts, the power of one can make a difference in changing the world. Let me share one story with you. Take just a few minutes and I'll try and condense a very long story to make it very short because I see we have about 5 minutes left. When I was a new attorney starting out in Manhattan, I was given a job of filing collection cases. And what it meant was all the cases looked the same. And so they gave me a binder and they said, Lisa, when you put together these complaints that you're going to file in court, all you have to do is pick the paragraphs out of this binder and connect them and file it in court. And then you have attachments that go with the complaint. Well, this involved workers' compensation. And so the workers' compensation policy had to be attached to every collection case. The workers' compensation policy is a standard uniform policy that is used in every state in this country. And in the early 1980s, it was called workmen's compensation. And I was looking at this complaint and the attachment, and I was thinking to myself, as a 27-year-old newbie lawyer, why is it called workmen's compensation? So I went to my boss and I asked him, I said, Mr. DiCarlo, can we make a filing in every state to change these letters, MANS, and change it to ERS? And he said, well, if you want to go through all the trouble to make that change, you go right ahead. It will be fine with me. Never really thinking that I would do it or that it would really happen. And so, ladies, what I'd like to tell you is that we call it workers' compensation today because of those simple, small letters, MANS, that was changed to ERS by a 27-year-old lawyer who managed to make that change and very subtly change the way workers are looked in this country, not as men, but as people. We have the power as one to make a difference in the work we are doing every day. And so what I'm going to ask of each one of you is to make sure that the power of one becomes the power of us together, helping each other, advancing each other, and supporting each other. As you advance yourself, break down barriers, create success that you never thought you were able to achieve, you can do it. You will do it. We believe in you. Annie?
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was an absolutely incredible presentation. I'm going to check to see if we have any questions. Let's see here. All right. So I do not see the questions here.
Well, what I'll do, Annie, then is I will take the opportunity to share this flyer that we will make available to everyone. It is just points that I have accumulated along the way, kind of like my list of things that I don't want to ever lose sight of. And so I'll just run down them very quickly, kind of highlight the ones that I think are particularly important. The first one is number 6, which is when you are interacting in a business setting, particularly, and engaging in communication, think of every interaction as a job interview. You are being assessed. People are thinking about your potential. And I want you to be thinking about not the role you are in or what you are doing, but I want you to be thinking about the goals that you have set for yourself and behave and think like the person that you want to be in the future. The next part that I'd like to just highlight is to give credit to others. Everyone knows how hard you have worked. And when you give credit to others, it's a recognition of what kind of person you are, that you are a team player, that you are compassionate and caring, and that you are willing to lift others up. And so finally, number 16, listen. Boy, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to really listen and respond to the needs of others, to be empathetic, to recognize what the real issues are, and to respond to whatever the situation is that you are being faced with. And so hopefully these 17 points will make you more successful. They're tough, simple, but tough. And remember that change comes in very small increments.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for this wonderful presentation. The first steps to communicate effectively is to simply believe in yourself. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in our future webinars and workshops. Have a wonderful day.